He was, of course, the actual father of all Babylonian gods, and therefore, in that character, he was afterwards universally regarded. As the father of the gods, he was, as we have seen, called Kronos, and everyone knows that the classical story of Kronos was just this, that he devoured his sons as soon as they were born. It's from the Lempriere Classical Dictionary under Saturn. This legend has a further and deeper meaning, but as applied to Nimrod, or the Horned One, it just refers to the fact that, as a representative of Moloch, or Baal, infants were the most acceptable offerings at his altar. We have ample and melancholy evidence on the subject from the records of antiquity. The Phoenicians, says Eusebius, every year sacrificed their beloved and only begotten children to Kronos or Saturn. But why was human sacrifice such a key to the worship of this terrible god? What possible good could human beings think they saw in slaughtering their own children? Continuing, he who approached the fire would receive a light from divinity, and through divine fire all the stains produced by generations could be purged away. Therefore, children were made to pass through the fire unto Molech, Jeremiah 32 verse 45. And as incredible as it seems, deceived human beings actually believed they were pleasing their God by sacrificing their own innocent children to him. They believed fire purified them from original sin. The pagan doctrine of spending time in purgatory to purge the soul from all sin derives from this belief. A bit more on Molech. Like some other gods and demons found in the Bible, Moloch appears as part of medieval demonology, as a prince of hell. This Moloch finds particular pleasure in making mothers weep. He specializes in stealing their children. According to some 16th century demonologists, Moloch's power is stronger in December, which is interesting because this is more or less a time when they celebrate this feast. And I just want to mention here that Moloch, the statue of Moloch in which they incinerated their babies, he wore a Phrygian cap, the same type of cap that Santa Claus wears. Now, isn't that interesting? And still people places their children into his lap, into Moloch's lap. His name only changed. He's not called Moloch anymore, he's now called Santa Claus. He still wears his Phrygian cap, and the children are still placed in his lap as they recite to him what they want for Christmas. So it's still the same festival. Satan only changes the names to confuse the people, to make them celebrate the same feasts as they did thousands of years ago. Who was Nimrod? Well, we must now look more closely at who this biblical figure Nimrod was. We have already seen him as one of history's original false gods. But what else can he be learned? Genesis 10 verse 9 says of Nimrod, he was a mighty hunter before or in the place of Master Yahuwah. He actually tried to replace Yahuwah, our Heavenly Father. That's what it means when it says he was a mighty hunter before Yahuwah. That before, if you look that word up, is actually against. That he was a mighty hunter against Yahuwah. Because he was stealing the souls of people away from Yahuwah. The famous Jewish historian Josephus records in Josephus' Antiquities important evidence of the Nimrod's role in the post-flood world. Notice, he also gradually changed the government into tyranny. He, Nimrod, also said he would be revenged on Yahuwah if he should have a mind to drown the world again. For that he would build a tower too high for the waters to be able to reach. Now the multitude were very ready to follow the determination of Nimrod, and to esteem it as a piece of cowardice to submit to Yahuwah. They, as it says here, to esteem it a piece of cowardice to submit to Yahuwah. They saw you as a coward if you submit under Yahuwah's authority and not under Nimrod, because Nimrod said he will build a tower so high that the floods cannot cover it. And so the people, he drew the people away from our Heavenly Father by doing that, starting in effect a new religion. Under many names, mankind's earliest and perhaps greatest rebel has been worshipped throughout false religion. Ancient Israel kept falling into serving the many false gods that Nimrod represented. Ezekiel 8 verse 13 to 14 records a picture of women of Israel weeping for Tammuz. This Tammuz, the god of fire, was considered to be Nimrod, and the etymology of the word itself is fascinating. Tam means to make perfect, and Muz means fire. The meaning is clear in light of what we have already learned. Incidentally, in the Iraqi-Kuwaiti Desert Storm War, Saddam Hussein even named one of his missiles the Tammuz. He certainly understood that its meaning included fire. As you see, the name Tammuz means actually perfect fire, or making perfect fire, referring also to the sun in the sky, of course, which is a ball of fire. Let's see how Yahuwah's people Israel worshipped Baal or Molech once they had departed from true Elohim. And they built the high places of Baal, which are in the valley of the son of Hinnom, to cause their sons and daughters to pass through the fire unto Molech, which I commanded them not. Neither came it into my mind that they should do this abomination, this disgusting thing. Jeremiah 32 verse 35. Notice that Yahuwah himself says that such horrible abominations never even entered his mind. They have built also the high places of Baal, to burn their sons with fire for burnt offerings unto Baal, which I commanded not, nor spoke it, neither came it into my mind. Therefore, behold, the days come, says Yahuwah, that this place shall no more be called Tophet, nor the valley of the son of Hinnom, but the valley of slaughter. Jeremiah 19 verse 5. Verse 6 says, ties the valleys of the Tophet or Hinnom to this practice. Jeremiah 7 verse 31 connects Tophet and Hinnom to the child of sacrifice. Tophet means the drum, and drums were played to drown the screams of victims in the flames of those babies. When they placed them in Molech's lap, they were huge drums that these guys were hitting so that their parents could not hear the screams of those babies. Now that's what the word Tophet means. So the valley of Tophet means the valley of the drums. Notice this quote from Paradise Lost by John Milton about the terrible god Molech. First Moloch, horrid king besmeared with blood of human sacrifice and parents' tears, though for the noise of drums and timbrels loud their children cries unheard, that passed through fire to his grim idol. Of course, everyone will say that they do not sacrifice their children to Molech today, but read on. In the New Testament, the martyr Stephen was stoned to death, at least partly because he indicted his listeners for the worship of this evil idol. Acts 7 verse 43. When righteous King Josiah came to the throne as king of Yehuda, he destroyed the altars in the valley of Tophet, or Hinnom, the very same valley Messiah linked to Gehenna fire in Mark 9 verse 43 to 49. Soon after coming to power, he realized that great evil of the practices taking place there. Many people have heard of the Druids. Few know who and what they were. We will refer to them later and tie them to other well-known Christmas practices. We must first establish their historic role in human sacrifice. Julius Caesar is the best-known source of information about the Druids. This comes from the Encyclopedia Britannica. This quote under Druids clearly explains who they were. Druids, the learned class among the ancient Celts, whose name means knowing or finding, the oak tree. They seem to have frequented oak forests and acted as priests, teachers, and judges. The earliest known record of the Druids comes from the 3rd century BCE. Druids took charge of public and private sacrifices, and many young men went to them for instruction. They judged all public and private quarrels and decreed the penalty. The Druids' principal doctrine was that the soul was immortal. They offered human victims for those who were gravely sick or in danger of death in battle. Huge wicker works, images were filled with living men and then burned. Although Druids chose criminals by preference, they sacrificed innocent victims if necessary. There's also a movie out called Wicker Man of Nicolas Cage. Don't watch it, but in that movie this is also the case. They burn him alive in a wicker work, as the Druids did back in the day. The Old Testament is filled with Yahuwah's condemnation of Israel for practicing the customs of the nations around them, and we are covering important facts revealing a shocking picture. The role of cannibalism. Another truth about the origin of Christmas springs from the modern word cannibal. This practice has its roots in a prime function of all priests of Baal. Keep in mind that the Hebrew word for priest is Khan. C-A-H-N. Consider the following quote from The Two Babylons by Alexander Hislop, page 232. And it was a principle of the Mosaic law, a principle no doubt derived from the patriarchal faith, that the priest must partake of whatever was offered as a sin offering. Numbers 9 and 10. Hence, the priests of Nimrod or Baal were necessarily required to eat of the human sacrifices, and thus it has come to pass that Khan Nabal, the priest of Baal, is the established word in our own tongue for a devourer of. So it is interesting to see that the word cannibal, Khan, referring to the priests of Baal, and Abal, referring to of Baal, priest of Baal, cannibal, because they ate human flesh, which was what they sacrificed unto Molech. The reality of this can be lost on no one. It is also true that most civilizations have a tradition that has involved cannibalism. Notice this statement from the New York Times. What is the meaning of cannibalism? By Eric Ekholm. Cannibalism has once fascinated and repelled virtually every known society, including those said to have practiced it. This same article went on to show that most civilizations also attach divine significance to its practice. What about the Santa myth? Have you considered that you could also be burning, even sacrificing your children today, though in a different way, in your practice of Christmas, while you may be trying to sincerely focus on Messiah? Parents reason that they owe the whole Christmas myth to their children. Christmas traditions are focused primarily on kids, and they are certainly the center of most of what happens.